Hi there, I'm Kathleen Jasper, and today we're going to be talking about test anxiety and failure. Two very fun subjects that I get a lot of questions about. Let's get started. So, I get a lot of emails and direct messages related to test anxiety and dealing with failure. And these are sometimes really hard for me to answer because I'm not a psychiatrist or a counselor. And I also don't have anything other than the you'll get it next time or keep trying kind of responses. I always feel for the people who are emailing me with these concerns because I know how defeating it can be to not meet a goal or to have anxiety about an upcoming test or whatever you're trying to do. I experience those feelings myself, but sometimes it's hard to articulate that in an email. So I thought I would do a video today on it and just show you some things that I deal with myself and how I try to overcome that. Again, I am not an expert in test anxiety or in anxiety. I do have anxiety. I guess I'm an expert in having it, but I'm not a licensed therapist or anything like that. And that's always why I have a hard time, responding to some of these things. But I'm just going to share my own experience and this might help you. So I have failed at so many things. I mean, so big. I have had some of the biggest failures you can ever have in your life. And normally, I'm one of those people who can dust myself off and try again. A lot of times I punish myself for failing. I berate myself. I do all the things that you do. God, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? Oh my God, I can't believe I thought I could do that. Who do I think I am? And that negative self-talk and that imposter syndrome starts to come up in the brain, and it takes over my psyche as well. It happens to everybody. And the other thing that happens is I typically get anxiety or at least get a little bit fearful when I have something big coming up. So, one of the things that I've been really working on, and it's really helped me a lot, is detaching from outcomes. Now, this is easier said than done and takes a ton of practice. But when you're detached from the outcome, you're not thinking about what if I don't pass this test? What if I don't get a good grade on this paper? What if I don't meet my goal? You're living in the future when you do that. And I do the same thing. I live in the future. I live in the past. I'm time traveling all over the place, and it's not a good situation. If I can just focus on the process and the task at hand, I always do better. And I always get like in the zone and I stop thinking about everything else and the outcomes that I need to happen in order to get on with my life. Like you're thinking, oh, I have to get this score in order to do X, Y, and Z. Or if I don't do this, then I won't be able to do X, Y, and Z. And those are really, really bad thoughts. Think about it. When you're teaching, or when you're doing anything and you're in the process, you're in the game, you're not thinking about after school or when the lesson is over or the test at the end of the week. You're just like teaching kids math, or you're just going through grammar, or you're doing a reading lesson and you're so into it and you're so into the process, and you look up at the clock and it's like an hour later or 45 minutes later. And before you know it, the period is over and the kids are packing up and they're leaving. And you're like, wow, that's crazy. Or maybe you're a server at a restaurant or a bartender and you're so busy and there's so many people around and you are just so focused on pouring those drinks or serving that food. You look up and the lunch rush is over or the dinner rush is over and you're like, wow. And it feels so good to have been so focused on the task that you didn't even notice the hours ticking away or the minutes ticking away. And if we can do that in some of these more stressful tasks, it'll make it easier on us. And I find that for myself, if I can just focus on the process, not think about the grade, not think about the outcome, just say to myself, for example, if I'm taking a test, I am taking a test today at 3 p.m. The only thing I have to worry about is the task at hand, is that task. When I sit down to take the test, that is what I'm doing. I'm not thinking about in 3 weeks when I get the results. I'm not thinking about the email that's going to come. I'm not thinking about the job I may or may not get. Right now, I have this task to finish, and I'm going to stay focused on every task. And every time I start to time travel, I don't get upset and I don't try to push the thought out, because if I do that, then the thought just keeps coming. It's like relentless. I allow it to come in. And I say, okay, I'm getting a little stressed about the outcome of this. I'm going to try to detach from this outcome and get back to my task at hand. And it might take a couple of seconds or whatever. And usually that helps me, but it takes a lot of practice. And so that's what I recommend you do for test anxiety. Now, beyond that, you can go to your doctor and get a written note. You can present that to the testing company and they can give you extra time if you are diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. Or you can, use the resources you have, go see a counselor if it's really, really debilitating. But if you're one of those people who is just stressed about the math exam you have to take or the dissertation you have to write or whatever the task at hand is, I would recommend detaching from outcomes and focusing on the process. I've also read something that's kind of, woo-woo-y a little bit when it comes to tasks that we are afraid of. And I've read that you should pretend that that task is your best friend. And you're basically going to meet that friend for lunch or dinner or whatever. And you are only going to be thinking about that friend in that moment. And you're going to give it everything you've got. That works for some people. That's really hard for me to do, but it does work. When I think about a task that I do not want to do or I'm afraid to do, if I think of it as like that task is my best friend and I'm going to meet it for dinner, I do better and I have a better attitude about it. But there's a couple of different ways that you can approach it. So I have heard that and it has worked for me from time to time. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is failure. So I think a lot of this anxiety is coming from the fear of failure, which we all have. I don't like failing. You don't like failing. Nobody likes failing. We all want to just keep this trajectory line going up, 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 right? But that's not the way things work. Peaks and valleys in life. Some days you're on top, some days you're on the bottom. That's just the way it works. Nothing is a straight line to the top. And we all know it. We tell our students this. We say to the kids, hey, it's okay. You didn't get it today, but you'll get it tomorrow. You're working really hard. You're doing really well. Stay in the game. Stay focused. I'm here with you. I'm here to help, right? We say all those things to our kids. And then when it's our turn to fail or to struggle, we berate ourselves and we call ourselves losers. And oh my gosh, what am I doing? I don't belong here. Who do I think I am? I'm such a loser, right? And you wouldn't say that to your students. You wouldn't say that to a stranger on the street. You wouldn't say that to anyone except yourself. So my next suggestion is let's treat ourselves like we would treat a stranger on the street or a student in our classroom. We would be empathetic. If someone came up to us and said, I've studied for this exam for 3 weeks and I couldn't pass it. I got to not pass in the email. You would probably say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, but that's okay. Keep trying. You'll get there. I believe in you. You would say that to a stranger. Most people would. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you don't like strangers and you would stay away from the stranger. But most of us would go, oh my gosh, you work so hard. Be proud of yourself for working so hard and take a break and get back to it. Try to speak that way to yourself. With your students, you would never go, oh God, you didn't get the reading score you wanted. What a loser you are. You would never say that to a student. Don't treat yourself any less than you would treat a student. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself the grace you would give a stranger or your student. And I'm just going to share one colossal failure that happened to me this weekend and the grace that I've given myself. So I trained for a marathon for 20 weeks. I'm already a runner. I've already run a marathon. I run half marathons. I like distance. I'm pretty speedy. I mean, I'm not like crazy fast, but I'm faster than some people. I'm not like the slowest runner in the world. And I had this goal that I wanted to qualify for the Boston Marathon. And I put it out there to all my family. I put it on social media. I made it my entire personality for 20 weeks. And I trained and made it like a full-time job. I ran all the distances. I did the speed. I swam in the pool with the triathletes. I was working so hard. The first probably 3/4 of my training went really, really well. About 3/4 in, I got sick. I wasn't able to get to the 20-mile mark, which you have to do in order to get to the 26 miles for the marathon. I kind of got there, but I couldn't get past 16, 18 miles. I just couldn't do it. My body would not do it. My knees started breaking down. And I thought, well, when I get to the marathon, it'll be different because when you're in a race, the crowd kind of pushes you and you just do better on race day than you do when you're alone training out there on the road. Right. So I thought, oh, I'll be fine. And I did that whole thing. Like, I'm not going to be attached to the outcome. If I make it to Boston, I make it to Boston. If I don't, I don't. Right. So I'm cruising. I'm out way too fast. The temperature is very cool, which I train in Florida, so it's hot. So the drop in 40 degrees, I was feeling so good. I was like, I've got this. Look at me. I am cruising, right? Mile 13, everything just starts to break down. That feeling in my body where I can't go any further. My knee starts to really, really hurt. And I just thought to myself, what am I doing? This is not going to happen. There's no way I'm going to be able to run another 13 miles. And I stopped and I took my bib off and I went to find my friend and I ran her in at mile 25. I found mile 25. I waited for her. She was my training partner and I ran her in the last mile to support her because she killed it. She did amazing. And I was really worried because I don't quit things like that. I don't do things like that. And normally if something like that happens and I don't meet my goal, I would like immediately sign up for another marathon to punish myself and make myself train 20 times harder this time and all of that. And right before I stopped running in that marathon that I had trained so hard for and spent a lot of money on gear and swimming and all of this stuff, right before I stopped, I said, if you stop, you are not going to berate yourself. You have had a 20-week run of hardcore training. You have done so much. You are not allowed to be mad at yourself or to be down on yourself for stopping. If you can make that commitment, then you can stop. If you're going to berate yourself, we're not doing that. And I made a promise to myself that I would show myself some grace and just say, you know what? 26.2 is not it's not my bag. I'm not going to be able to do it in a race. I don't want to do it. I wanted to stop and I wanted to support my teammate. So I have been fine. I made a commitment to give myself grace, the same grace I would show a stranger or a student. And I didn't meet my goal, not even close. I didn't even finish the race. Was it a failure? Totally was. But I learned a lot about myself in the training and in the moment that I stopped. Now, I am not telling you, I'm not advocating for quitting things like, oh, just quit. I'm not saying that. But in the moment, that was the right decision for me. My body started breaking down. My knee was not going to make it. And if I had pushed, because that's my MO, I would have hurt myself more and would have had to take a lot more time recovering. I realized in that moment that this is not my race and that this is not my train. This is not my journey. This is not my path. And so I let it go and I'm fine, which is weird. My husband's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. He's like, okay. He's wondering when I'm going to have my nervous breakdown about not meeting my goal, but I'm fine. And I just recommend you do the same for yourself. If you have a goal to pass your teacher certification exam, do it. But if you don't meet it at the exact time that you want it to be, like, oh, I'll take the exam in September, I'll pass by October, I'll be certified by this time, that sets us up for a lot of bad feelings about ourselves. I'm going to take the test in September and see how it goes. I'm not going to be attached to any outcomes. I'm going to work really hard. But if I make it, great. If I don't, I will figure out where I went wrong and fix that up and keep trying. I know you do not have the luxury of just quitting your certification exams, but you do have the ability to give yourself some grace and detach from outcomes. So I did that this weekend. It feels really good. Actually, it feels like a really good learning experience for me. And I hope that you will kind of take my marathon failure story, my blow up story, and apply it in your life if it helps you. We're all failing all the time, and it's all good. You're going to have lots of victories as well. There's usually more failures than victories. That's just the way life goes. So I hope this video helps you. I hope it helps you with your test anxiety. Again, I'm not a life coach. I don't have all the perfect sayings for you. I just know that you can do this. And if you detach from the outcome, it's going to be a lot easier on you. That's all I have for you today. If you have any questions or concerns, you can leave them in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video and have an awesome day. Bye.